There is a word, whispered through the corridors of time, that carries within it both a promise and a warning: spirit. It is a term that dances on the tongues of alchemists and theologians, poets and physicians, all of whom have sought, in their own ways, to decipher its elusive meaning. And yet, nestled within this very word lies an enigma. Why is al-kuhl, the Arabic root of alcohol, so intimately bound to the concept of spirit? To sip from this chalice of inquiry is to embark on a journey through veiled dimensions, where chemistry meets metaphysics, where the intoxication of the body blurs into the intoxication of the soul. The ancients knew well that certain substances held power beyond their physical form. Distillation, the alchemical art of separating essence from matter, was not merely a laboratory technique but a sacred act, an attempt to capture the spiritus, the breath of life itself. When fire met liquid, what rose in the vapors was not just ethanol but something far more mysterious, a volatile, invisible force that seemed to transcend the material world. And so, alcohol became known as spirit, not merely for its flammability or its ability to evaporate into the air, but because it mirrored something profound about the human condition, the longing to escape, to dissolve boundaries, to touch something beyond the self. Yet here we encounter the paradox, the double-edged nature of this ethereal substance. For if alcohol is indeed a spirit, then what kind of spirit is it? Does it elevate, or does it ensnare? Does it connect us to the divine, or does it sever us from it? Across cultures and epochs, intoxication has been both sacrament and sin, a doorway to ecstasy and a prison of dependency. The Sufis spoke of wine as a metaphor for divine love, while the Quran sternly warned against its heedless consumption. The shamans of old used fermented brews to commune with gods, yet their rituals were tightly bound by sacred law, lest the seeker lose themselves in the very abyss they sought to navigate. This duality is no accident. It is a reflection of a deeper truth, that the human soul is itself a volatile essence, a flickering flame between heaven and earth. When we drink, we do not merely ingest a chemical. We invoke an ancient dialogue between body and spirit, between freedom and bondage. The very word intoxication stems from the Greek toxikon, meaning poison, a reminder that what intoxicates can also corrupt, that what liberates can also enslave. And so, the question is not merely about the effects of alcohol on the liver or the mind, but about its resonance within the unseen architecture of the self. To explore this is to step into a labyrinth where science, spirituality, and symbolism intertwine. It is to ask why, when one consumes alcohol, the world seems to soften at its edges, why laughter comes easier and sorrows feel lighter, yet why, in the aftermath, there often lingers a hollowness, as though something vital has been drained away. Is this the trade-off for touching the spirit, that in seeking flight, we risk losing our grounding? Perhaps the answer lies in the nature of spirits themselves. In many traditions, spirits are intermediaries, beings that exist between worlds, neither fully of the earth nor fully of the heavens. They can be guides or tricksters, healers or seducers. And so it is with alcohol, a substance that can inspire communion or isolation, revelation or delusion. The choice, then, is not merely whether to drink, but how, with awareness or oblivion, with reverence or recklessness. As we venture deeper into this exploration, we will unravel the threads that bind alcohol to the concept of spirit, not just etymologically but existentially. We will examine the spiritual consequences of its consumption, how it alters perception, disrupts energy, and reshapes the subtle body. We will listen to the whispers of tradition, where warnings and wisdom have been passed down like sacred texts, cautioning against the misuse of this potent elixir. And ultimately, we will confront the most pressing question of all. In a world where spirits walk among us, both literal and metaphorical, how do we navigate their presence without losing ourselves? The journey begins here, at the threshold between seen and unseen, where every sip is a covenant, and every glass holds a reflection of the soul. The alchemy of intoxication and the soul. To understand why alcohol is called spirit is to step into an ancient conversation, one that spans the sacred and the profane, the mystical and the mundane. The word itself is a cipher, a linguistic artifact that carries within it the echoes of alchemical laboratories, temple rites, and the hushed warnings of seers. But beyond etymology, there is a deeper architecture at work, a set of universal themes that reveal why this substance has always occupied such a contested space in the human experience. At its core, alcohol is a substance of transformation, both literally and symbolically. The process of fermentation mirrors the soul's own journey. Raw, dense matter, grapes, grains, undergoes decay, only to give birth to something volatile, something that can ascend beyond its origins. The alchemists saw in this a metaphor for the human condition, the base self refined into gold, the mortal flesh yearning for the transcendent. And yet, like all alchemical processes, this transformation is not guaranteed. For every philosopher's stone, there is the risk of corruption. For every elixir of enlightenment, there is the poison of delusion. This duality is encoded in the very nature of alcohol. It is a spirit because it evaporates, because it refuses to stay fixed in form, just as the soul, in many traditions, is said to be untethered from the physical. But spirits, in folklore and religion, are not always benevolent. Some are guides, others are deceivers. Some bring visions, others bring nightmares. And so it is with intoxication. It can open doors of perception, but it can also lock the drinker in a hall of mirrors, where the self fractures and the world distorts. The illusion of liberation and the weight of dependency. One of the most seductive promises of alcohol is freedom. Freedom from inhibition, from sorrow, from the rigid structures of daily life. In ancient Dionysian rites, wine was the medium through which worshippers shed their societal masks and touched something wild, primal, divine. But this liberation is often temporary, illusory. Like a spirit that grants a wish with a hidden cost, alcohol can become a chain disguised as wings. The spiritual consequences of this are profound. Many esoteric traditions teach that the human energy field, the aura, the subtle body, is sensitive to influences, both seen and unseen. Alcohol, as a spirit, does not merely affect the brain. It permeates the energetic fabric of the individual. In some schools of thought, it is said to dull the inner light, to create a haze that separates the drinker from higher states of awareness. This is why, across wisdom traditions, sobriety is often linked to clarity, to prayer, to the ability to perceive the sacred. The relationship between spirituality and alcohol is one of reverence and restriction, a paradox that spans civilizations. In Christianity, wine is transubstantiated into the blood of Christ, a vessel of divine grace. In Sufism, the metaphor of wine symbolizes the intoxication of divine love, yet actual wine is forbidden. Hinduism reveres soma, a ritual intoxicant, while warning against major, alcohol, as a tamasic substance that clouds the mind. What these traditions recognize is that alcohol is not inherently evil, but it is inherently powerful, and power, when mishandled, becomes destructive. The line between sacrament and poison is thin, and it is drawn by intention, by context, by the vessel, both the cup and the person holding it. This is why, in many indigenous rituals, fermented drinks are consumed only under strict ceremonial guidelines, with prayers, purifications, and elders presiding. The spirit must be approached with respect, lest it turn from ally to adversary. Where does the soul go when we drink? Here we arrive at the most haunting question of all. If alcohol is a spirit, what happens to our spirit when we consume it? Some mystical traditions suggest that intoxication creates a kind of displacement. The soul retreats, loosens its grip on the body, making room for other energies to enter. This is why, in certain folkloric warnings, drunkards are said to be vulnerable to possession, to spiritual malaise. The veil thins, but not always in the way we might hope. Modern science, in its own language, echoes this. Alcohol depresses the central nervous system. It slows, it numbs. Metaphysically, one could say it dims the inner light, the vitality, the connection to something greater. This is not to moralize but to observe. The same substance that, in small doses, can warm the heart and ease communion, can, in excess, become a barrier between the self and the divine. Perhaps the deepest theme of all is the human longing that alcohol seems to promise to fulfill, the yearning for transcendence, for relief, for a taste of something beyond the ordinary. In this sense, the attraction to alcohol is a spiritual symptom, a misplaced hunger for the sacred. The Sufi poet Rumi wrote, "Why do you stay in prison when the door is so wide open?" And one could ask the same of the drinker who seeks liberation in a substance that, by its nature, cannot sustain it. This is the crux of the matter. Alcohol is called spirit because it mimics what the soul truly desires: freedom, connection, ecstasy, but it cannot provide it in any lasting way. It is a shadow of the real thing, a fleeting glimpse that fades with the morning light. And so, the spiritual consequence of drinking is not merely a matter of morality, but of orientation. Where are we seeking our transcendence? In a bottle, or in the boundless? The hidden allegories of alcohol. Across cultures and epochs, alcohol has been more than a mere substance. It has served as a living metaphor, a mirror reflecting humanity's deepest struggles and aspirations. To drink is to participate in an ancient drama, one where the boundaries between ecstasy and oblivion, divinity and decay, are blurred. These symbolic narratives reveal truths that transcend the physical act of drinking, touching instead on the soul's journey through illusion and awakening. In many creation myths, fire is a divine gift, sometimes given, sometimes stolen, that brings both enlightenment and destruction. Prometheus, in Greek lore, steals fire from the gods to empower humanity, only to suffer eternal torment for his transgression. A similar duality exists in the mythos of alcohol. Indigenous traditions from the Americas speak of fermented drinks as sacred gifts from the gods, yet they also tell of how misuse led to downfall, entire villages lost to drunkenness, wisdom drowned in recklessness. This mythic pattern suggests a profound spiritual truth: that which can elevate can also degrade, depending on how it is wielded. Alcohol, like fire, is a tool, one that can warm the hearth or burn down the temple. The stories warn us that intoxication is not merely a personal act but a cosmic negotiation, where the drinker stands between the blessings and curses of the gods. The parable of the two wine cups. A Sufi teaching tells of two wine cups offered to a seeker. One is golden, studded with jewels, filled with the finest vintage. The other is plain clay, rough to the touch, holding a bitter draught. The seeker, drawn to splendor, chooses the golden cup, only to find it laced with a slow poison. The clay cup, though unappealing, contains the water of life. The lesson is clear. The allure of intoxication is often its glamour, its promise of transcendence without effort. But true spirit, the kind that nourishes rather than depletes, is often found in the unadorned, in sobriety, in the humble disciplines that sustain the soul. Alcohol, in this allegory, is the golden cup, dazzling, seductive, but ultimately a counterfeit of the divine. The shaman's bargain, ecstasy at a price. In shamanic traditions worldwide, altered states are gateways to the spirit world, but they are never entered lightly. The shaman prepares for days, purifying the body, invoking protection, because they know that to journey beyond the veil is to risk getting lost, or worse, allowing malevolent forces entry. Alcohol, in this context, is a shortcut, a way to force the gates open without the necessary safeguards. This narrative frames drinking as a kind of amateur sorcery, where the drinker, unlike the trained shaman, stumbles into realms they do not understand and cannot navigate. The hangover, then, is more than physical. It is the soul's exhaustion, the toll of wandering unprotected in spaces where only the initiated should tread. The ghost in the bottle, a folkloric warning. European folklore is rife with tales of spirits, both literal and liquid, that trap the unwary. In one Scottish story, a man is gifted a bottle of whiskey by a mysterious stranger. Each sip brings him visions of grandeur, until he realizes, too late, that the bottle is refilling itself, and the stranger is a demon collecting his soul in exchange for endless intoxication. Here, alcohol is personified as a trickster entity, offering gifts that bind rather than free. The moral echoes across spiritual traditions. What we believe we control often ends up controlling us. The ghost in the bottle is the addiction, the dependency, the slow erosion of will, a reminder that some spirits demand more than they give. The mirror of Dionysus, madness and revelation. The Greek god Dionysus embodies alcohol's ultimate paradox. He is the liberator who loosens tongues and dissolves hierarchies. Yet he is also the destroyer whose frenzies tear families apart. His followers, the Maenads, experience divine ecstasy, but in their rapture, they sometimes rip living creatures limb from limb. This myth captures alcohol's capacity to both reveal and obliterate the self. In small doses, it may inspire poetry, laughter, connection. In excess, it unleashes the shadow, the repressed chaos within. The spiritual consequence is clear. There is a thin line between holy madness and self-annihilation, and alcohol dances on that edge. The Alchemists' failed experiment. An alchemical manuscript tells of a student who, impatient for enlightenment, drank his own imperfect elixir. Instead of achieving wisdom, he became trapped between worlds, his body sluggish, his mind flickering in and out of clarity. The master's judgment was stern. You sought the gold without enduring the fire. This story mirrors the modern pursuit of intoxication as instant transcendence. Spiritual growth requires purification, patience, the slow burn of self-discipline. Alcohol offers the illusion of alchemical transformation, but without the inner work, it becomes a parody of enlightenment, leaving the drinker stranded in the dross of half-awareness. The unifying thread, spirit versus spirit. All these narratives converge on a single truth. The spirit in alcohol is a test, a trial by which the soul's mettle is measured. It asks, can you handle the fire without being burned? Can you taste the divine without mistaking it for the cup that holds it? The spiritual consequences of drinking, then, are not just about morality. They are about discernment, the ability to distinguish between the vessel and the voyage, the symbol and the substance. Navigating the spirit with wisdom. The symbolic and metaphysical dimensions of alcohol are not merely philosophical abstractions. They manifest in the tangible choices of daily life. Understanding why alcohol is called spirit is not an academic exercise. It is a key to unlocking deeper awareness around consumption, addiction, and the soul's relationship with intoxication. Here, we bridge the esoteric with the practical, exploring how these insights can reshape our approach to drinking, or abstaining. In a world where alcohol is deeply woven into social rituals, personal coping mechanisms, and even spiritual crises. The ritual and the routine, reclaiming conscious consumption. Historically, alcohol was rarely consumed casually. It was part of ceremony, libations poured for gods, sacramental wine shared in communion, fermented brews drunk in rites of passage. There was an intentionality to its use, a recognition of its power. Today, drinking is often stripped of this sacred context, reduced to habit, escapism, or social lubrication. But what if we reintegrated mindfulness into our relationship with alcohol? Ritualize before you imbibe. Before drinking, pause. Ask, why am I choosing this? Is it celebration, connection, or avoidance? A simple moment of reflection can shift consumption from unconscious to conscious. Set sacred boundaries. In many traditions, moderation is not just health advice, it's spiritual law. The Islamic prohibition, the Buddhist precept against intoxicants, the Ayurvedic warning that alcohol disrupts sattva, clarity, all recognize that the body is a temple. Even if one drinks, doing so with clear limits honors the spirit within. Alternatives for elevation. If the draw of alcohol is its promise of relaxation or euphoria, explore other ways to achieve those states. Breathwork, meditation, dance, or even non-alcoholic entheogens like cacao ceremonies. These offer transcendence without depletion. The energy of addiction, when the spirit becomes a chain. Addiction is often framed as a biochemical trap, but its spiritual dimension is equally critical. If alcohol is a spirit, then addiction could be seen as a form of possession, not by some external demon, but by an energy that has overstayed its welcome. The craving is not just physical, it's a hijacking of the will, a distortion of desire. Recognizing the invader. Many recovering addicts describe their addiction as a voice or a separate entity. Naming it, whether as a shadow self or an energy attachment, can create psychological and spiritual distance, making it easier to resist. Clearing the residue. Energy healers often speak of alcohol leaving a film on the aura, dulling intuition and vitality. Practices like smudging, salt baths, or even visualization, imagining the self cleansed in light, can help restore subtle energy flow. Sobriety as spiritual practice. For those who choose abstinence, each day without drinking becomes a ritual of reclaiming power. Framing it as a vow, like a monk's renunciation, transforms struggle into sacred discipline. Social drinking and the collective spirit. Alcohol is a social lubricant, but it also functions as a cultural spell, an unspoken agreement that bonding requires intoxication. This norm carries spiritual consequences. When entire communities drink to connect, they may inadvertently reinforce low-energy bonds rather than authentic presence. Redefining gathering. Challenge the assumption that fun requires alcohol. Host sober, ecstatic dinners where conversation, storytelling, or music become the intoxicants. In many cultures, communal singing or prayer induces the same euphoria without the hangover. The power of the first sip. In groups, the first person to order a non-alcoholic drink gives others implicit permission to do the same. Be the one who shifts the energy. Deep listening over liquid courage. Alcohol promises to dissolve social anxiety, but true connection thrives in vulnerability, not numbness. Practice being fully present without chemical aid, awkwardness and all. The shadow work of drinking. What are you trying to escape? Every drink contains a question. What part of yourself are you trying to silence or unleash? For some, alcohol quiets inner criticism. For others, it unleashes repressed anger or grief. These are not flaws but clues, pointing to wounds that need attention. Journal prompt for drinkers. Next time you crave a drink, write down, what am I feeling right now that I don't want to feel? The answer reveals what your soul is asking you to heal. The other side of intoxication. If you drink to access joy or creativity, ask, how can I cultivate these sober? Often, alcohol is a shortcut for qualities we've disowned. Dream work. Alcohol disrupts REM sleep, where much subconscious processing occurs. Cutting back may bring vivid dreams. Pay attention. They often hold messages about what you're avoiding. Sacred alternatives. Replacing the spirit with spirit. For those who feel called to quit drinking but fear losing its magic, there are ancient alternatives that offer elevation without cost. Kava. Used in Pacific rituals, it relaxes without clouding the mind. Damiana tea. A gentle euphoriant traditionally used by Mayan shamans. Breath work. Consciously altering breath can induce trance states rivaling alcohol's effects. Sweat lodges or saunas. The heat-induced endorphin rush is a natural high. These are not mere substitutes but upgrades, ways to touch the numinous without the spiritual tax. The greater invitation, a life beyond the bottle. Ultimately, the question alcohol poses is, where else in your life are you seeking freedom, and how might you find it without an intermediary? The restless thirst that drives us to drink is often a misplaced longing for the divine, a homesickness for a state we've forgotten. The practical path forward is not about guilt or dogmatic prohibition, but about remembering that every sip is a negotiation with the unseen, and that true spirit needs no bottle to flow. The alchemy of awakening. We began this journey with a question: why is alcohol called spirit? And in tracing its echoes through language, myth, and the human experience, we have uncovered a truth far more profound than etymology. Alcohol is not merely a chemical compound. It is a mirror, a test, a crossroads where matter and spirit meet. To drink is to participate in an ancient alchemy, one that can distill either wisdom or wreckage from the raw material of our longing. The summoning of the seeker. This exploration is ultimately not about alcohol at all, but about you, the one who chooses, the one who thirsts. Every sip you take is a dialogue with your own soul. Are you drinking to remember or to forget? To connect or to escape? To ignite the sacred fire or to smother it? The answers are not found in judgment, but in the quiet honesty of your own heart. Consider this. The very fact that alcohol has been revered and feared across millennia suggests it is no ordinary substance. It is a threshold guardian, a gatekeeper that asks, how badly do you want the truth? Will you accept the fleeting counterfeit of transcendence, or will you dare to seek the real thing, the kind that demands your full presence, your courage, your sobriety in every sense of the word? The invitation, from spirits to spirit. If alcohol is a spirit, then your body is the temple that hosts it. What do you want to enshrine there? The haze of borrowed euphoria, or the clarity of your own unshakable light? The choice is yours, but know this. For those who drink, let each glass be a conscious covenant. Drink sparingly, reverently, as the ancients did, not to blur the world, but to see it more vividly. For those who abstain, wear your sobriety as a crown. You are not missing out. You are opting out of the illusion that joy requires alteration. For those struggling, your battle is not with a substance, but with the part of you that believes you need it. That part is not your enemy. It is a wounded child begging for the medicine of your attention. The final distillation. In the alchemical tradition, the ultimate goal was not gold, but the transformation of the alchemist. Alcohol, too, is a crucible, one that can burn away your illusions if you let it. The hangovers, the regrets, the moments of clarity in the depths of the night, these are not punishments, but signposts. They are the universe whispering, you are meant for more. So here is the call, the final draft of this journey. Step out of the spell. Whatever your relationship with alcohol, may it be one of ruthless honesty, fierce compassion, and unflinching freedom. The spirit you seek has always been within you, not in the bottle, but in the breath, the blood, the boundless quiet beneath the noise. Drink that instead.